I'm Claire, and this is my mate Anna. 10 years ago, Anna and I drove a Ford Fiesta 10,000 kilometres from the UK to West Africa. We'd bought it off eBay for less than £250. We had no service history and almost no mechanical know-how. The West Africa we saw is a different one now, and today's politics would make this trip a challenge to repeat. Our breakdowns were outnumbered only by adventures, and we got way more mileage from our car than we'd ever hoped for. 10 years later, this is our story.
We're on our way to Sindou. We just had an amazing lunch on the bonnet. Amazing! And it's a really nice road. It's very lush, it's quite cool.
We'd just left the Banfora Falls where we'd been camping under the mango trees and were now driving towards the tri-border with Mali and Côte d'Ivoire so we could explore the sandstone formations of Sindou Pics.
Good lunch.
Amazing lunch. Really good lunch.
We were still subsisting on our diet of mangoes and cashew nuts given how abundant they were in this part of Burkina, and were sprinkling them into every meal, including the salad we'd just devoured off the granny's bonnet, which now doubled up as our dining table. We had only one more adventure with Tom ahead of us, as we would head straight to Ouagadougou after Sindou Pics, so Tom could fly home to the UK from there.
That's mountain. Yeah, really cool.
We'd been driving through nothing but rural areas, past fields where crops were growing, and over collapsed bridges on gravel tracks that felt far from anywhere. We were therefore on the lookout for one last wild camping spot where we could sit around a fire in the middle of nowhere before hitting the capital city.
Can we camp in there? Should we camp here? We'll find a spot. I think use a turn off to get in there a bit, apparently. It says welcome.
Now we just had to figure out whether the rocky terrain was going to give us any issues while we attempted to find a place we could park out of sight and pitch a tent.
Maybe now. I reckon we can drive in there. Granny does it. Again.
It wasn't looking great for us to drag the granny much further in through the front door.
Walking? What's that? Who does that?
Maybe not, eh?
Tom, have faith.
Have faith. Alright, I'll shut up.
No, I'm only joking.
As it was, we needed a guide to explore the peaks from this point anyway, where we'd climb up to a plateau between the rocks and check out the view from on top. From there, we drove back to the road to look for another spot where we could drag Granny through the bushes and camp out of sight of any peering eyes in the villages. It was the perfect place for a night in the wilderness, or so we thought.
What's that? Is that coffee?
Yeah, I'm just enjoying my morning coffee at our random campsite in the middle of nowhere, where we drove off the road and then off the secondary road and through some bushes to get some nice isolation.
So we had our little fire last night.
And seclusion. And then this morning,
We'd woken up to find that our campsite was clearly not as out of the way or as secluded as we'd thought the night before.
Bonjour. Bonjour.
they found us.
Ça va? Ça va bien?
Comment tu fais?
Morning coffee with the local kids.
We now had company for breakfast.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet spot.
When we unzipped our tent early in the morning to find these kids staring back at us, they were already on their way back from a morning spent filling giant buckets with cashew fruit to be harvested for the nuts. I was now attempting to make conversation in awful French, despite not being proficient enough to understand the questions and replies I was getting back.
Another look at breakfast. Well, not breakfasts.
Tom was busy perfecting a homemade walking stick after twisting his ankle leaping across the rocks at Banfora Falls.
Monkey.
It was worth it. Definitely worth it.
Until he then scared off the kids while trying to dance with said walking stick, giving them the impression he was chasing after them with it instead. The damage wasn't irreparable, however, as the kids were keen to show Tom their impressive bush skills a little later on as we were brushing our teeth and getting ready to hit the road to Ouagadougou.
What happened, Tom?
There's a lot of excitement up the tree, and everyone's climbing the tree. And the guy with a stick whacked a squirrel out the tree. And they will chase it. They want to eat the squirrel.
It seems the cashews weren't the only food getting pulled from the trees.
They want to eat it.
Yum yum.
While the girls seemed keen for us to turn on the music again so they could slay not just the squirrel but also us in a dance-off, the time had come for us to hit the road once more and get to Ouagadougou.
Au revoir. Au revoir.
As we left Sindou Pics, what we didn't know was that a series of world events were kicking off which would liven things up in Ouagadougou. The Arab Spring had reached Bahrain the day before, having kicked off in Tunisia 2 months earlier. It had also toppled Egypt's President Mubarak while we were camping at Banfora Falls. As we drove to Ouagadougou, hundreds of demonstrators would protest in Libya, and Gaddafi's heavy-handed response would ignite the Libyan revolution that would end his regime. While Burkina seemed far from Libya, the two countries were close diplomatically, and Burkina would later be reported as the sole country to offer Gaddafi asylum. Burkina's then dictator Blaise Compaoré was himself a protege of Gaddafi's, who took power in a 1987 coup d'etat and had been hanging on to it ever since. It was anyone's guess if the Arab Spring might claim him too. For now, however, we had just arrived in Ouagadougou.
Yo. What?
Pumped up air in the tyres, that is.
Because of course we had a deflating tyre and no compressor.
So, tell us about your lunch, Claire.
And in usual fashion, we'd figured out where the food was while still not having somewhere to stay.
I had some amazing aubergine thing and sorbet.
How was it?
Really good. Really good.
Now that we were in Ouagadougou, we needed to find the Ghanaian embassy and apply for visas so we could travel on to there from Burkina Faso once Tom flew out.
Dude with the hose. With our tyre. Come back up from there.
When we got to the embassy, they told us the rules had changed in the last month and we were now only allowed to get visas from our home country, which Burkina Faso was not.
Look at my hair. Your hair's amazing. It's orange. Almost as amazing as this street, in fact. Oh look, it's got a street sign. Ooh, 9/11. Nice. Time's good stuff to come.
If disruption was the plan, then indeed it was.
I'm up. Hey.
It's here, isn't it?
What? I don't know what you're talking about. Let me just back up and
Actually,
give us the whole picture.
We'd spent a few days making friends with the ambassador at the Ghanaian embassy, and he'd finally let us draft a letter of appeal for obtaining a visa, with no guarantees we'd get one.
What's that?
we had about 15 mosquitoes all impaled on the mosquito net where the fan blew them into their death.
Ah, and what was inside of the net then, Claire? Was that you and me, maybe, that got very eaten? So yeah, bit of a wetsuit, some skirts, some laundry, some first aid. What are we doing? Why is this rubbish everywhere? Why is this, our shit's just spread out? What's going on, Tom?
Home is changing. The car is going, hopefully.
We are...
So we have to empty it.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of shit.
We were preparing to sell the car in case our visas came through, since Ghanaian customs refused to let cars like Granny into the country without a car passport, which we didn't have.
But, Claire, we're getting to Ghana, yeah?
Yeah, we're going to either fraudulently get there or counterfeit our way there. I'm not really sure what the appropriate verb is, though.
I'm not going.
Counterfeit our way in. Tom sucks. He saved £250 of his plane ticket, which he could use to then just go to Ghana instead. But he wants to go be responsible in the real world.
Tom had just bought a ticket to the UK via Tripoli with Libya's national airline, Air Africa. Meanwhile, the second day of protests against Gaddafi's regime had just kicked off, igniting the revolution and Libya's civil war. We, however, were yet to find that out.
If you can't afford a nice meal out, then you just have to camp in your hotel room with a glass of wine.
Have you seen The Labyrinth?
Yeah.
Children's film?
Yeah.
You know the way that she rediscovers her bedroom but in the rubbish dump?
Ah.
I kind of feel like we're there.
Yeah. Is that what we feel?
It's all right.
Quite
I'm
spectacular.
probably going to have to give all of these possessions to someone on the border with Ghana so we can get into the country.
We'll be alright.
We dropped Tom at the airport, only to find out that somewhere between check-in and boarding, protesters had stormed Gaddafi's compound in Tripoli, set the state TV building on fire, and were trying to take the airport. His flight would therefore not be going, and we'd have him a few days longer while he found a different way back to the UK.
Right, we're trying to find a hotel where you can camp. We just passed the goat market.
We still had no update on our Ghanaian visas, so we were moving to a free campsite for overlanders on a disused mini-golf course on the outskirts of Ouaga. Of course, we would be the only people without a four-wheel drive there.
We've been stuffing our faces with ice cream today. It's been all fantastic. I went to the market. We're making chocolate tonight.
This is my last day.
It's very, very sad.
Tom had managed to book a new flight that didn't go straight through the middle of a civil war, and he'd fly out that evening after getting us to cut off all his dreadlocks before finally leaving West Africa.
Proceed with baguette.
Bonsoir. Wait, hotel. Okay, in. No.
We would spend almost 3 weeks in Ouagadougou while sorting out red tape for onward travel. Since Africa's biggest film festival, FESPACO, was on in Ouaga at the same time, we killed time on the red carpet and watched African films between lounging at the pool and trying to find the perfect pineapple juice.
What? Oh, what's that, Claire? That's a stripe, a blue and a red stripe. It's pretty fast.
That's what happens when you stop to ask for directions.
Yeah.
You end up with sunglasses.
No directions though.
No,
Oh,
we
look
can't
at this.
find the place we go.
Avendre,
Oh,
Ford Fiesta.
grannies for sale.
We just picked up the multi-country visa entente, giving us access to Niger, Benin, Togo and Cote d'Ivoire as Plan B in case our Ghanaian visas weren't approved.
And the road is blocked as well. It's all fun and games.
We now needed the Ghanaian embassy to open for the day.
So, yeah, this is the capital city. This is the capital city. And
Marina Market.
we're waiting. It's 10ish. And the magical time today is going to be 12. When
10:26 actually.
Oh, even so. Maybe we should head to Cafe Vienna, put some posters up and have
Get
some.
a cold drink and some cake.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
See you at Cafe Vienna.
But it wouldn't be that simple, for we were about to end up in a bit of a debacle.
Alright, that's a bit of a main roundabout right there, and that's a shitload of school kids.
With bicycles.
The bicycles.
We had unwittingly ended up in a protest against police brutality after the death of a high school student in custody.
Sounds like some kind of yelling and chanting.
This exact moment would be about to kick off months of unrest.
Uh-oh, they're in trouble.
Or rather, we were about to be.
Ya vámonos.
Look at me thinking it's just a traffic jam. These anti-government protests would last until June.
What the fuck is this?
Around this time, student protesters were being shot dead, and military mutinies called for the president's resignation, prompting the French press to speculate on a full-scale uprising.
I'm not allowed to film it. We are filming it though. But it was just a dude who said, Madame.
What the fuck? Can we go down there? Maybe not.
The protesters on bicycles had now blocked off all of the entries and exits, trapping us in the intersection.
What's going on?
We'd then stopped filming, only for things to really kick off.
What the fuck? We got
Just
out.
been attacked by a bunch of school kids.
I should explain. As we tried to find an exit, the crowds had gathered around the car, trying to force it to a stop as protesters climbed on the bonnet and roof and tried to smash our windows in with their fists. We were a little rattled, and now my Australian was showing.
Fucking
Who
hell.
are like
Yeah, that's
sitting
me,
on the bonnet. I
knocking
just
the
had to
doors.
drive through them, literally, like while they were sitting on the bonnet with their bicycles in front.
Yeah, 2 seconds after we thought that was a bit of a friendly...
They were
I don't know,
slamming on the car, banging their fists on the windows,
Going up on the bonnet, climbing on top of the car.
Oh
Nice.
my god, I know what it's like now for people that get stuck in a crowd and have their car like rocked over.
Yeah.
I was like, nah, fuck this, we have to drive, because like, shit, they were like rioting, going mad.
Fucking hell. Don't know why. We need to figure this out. Alright. Cafe Vienna. Still trying to get there.
So,
What happened with Vienna?
well, we were gonna go to Cafe Vienna and wait until 12 so we could come and pick up our passports and hope that we had some visas, but it was closed. And now the time is 11:30. So 12 o'clock, yeah, 11:30. So 12 o'clock's supposed to be when we get our visas, but Cafe Vienna was closed, so we decided to drive down to the embassy anyway and annoy the grumpy woman. But if you don't play by the rules in Africa, sometimes they crack the shits. In this case, she didn't though. And we have visas for Ghana. So now I have to get chocolate mousse and ice cream.
Our biggest problem now was whether to sell the car and get straight to Ghana or check out a few other countries we suddenly had visas for first.
It's our favourite ride of all rides. And the office celebrated with us. Because we've been in there so much to do strike. You're right. You're good. You're good. And we're like, yay, we're good. And they're like, woo! Everyone was celebrating today. Hey, hey, because this is Africa.
What was Niger like at this time of the year? Or Togo? Benin? Should we head to Ghana via? It was time to retreat to the campsite and figure it out.
It's an amazing camp spot. What's around the corner? What's around the corner?
We just made friends with Lena, who'd hitchhiked to Burkina from Germany and was keen to travel on with us for a bit.
Hey! Hello, Claire. Hi. And on you, family member, very bright.
We were discussing options for where to next and decided that if we went east to Niger, we could loop down to Benin from there and west into Togo before continuing on to Ghana. The only problem with going to Niger was that fellow overlanders kept telling us it was so unsafe that the French President Sarkozy was now refusing to pay any more ransoms for French citizens who got kidnapped there. We were told that our bright red British car would stand out like a sore thumb in Niger and that if we were thinking of going, we should at least take the decorations off it first. Since we'd need to do this if we were going to sell it anyway, this seemed a pretty sensible place to start.
What are you doing?
We're losing Granny. Giving her one last sponge bath.
We'd just received an offer to buy the granny and were preparing to move on from Burkina Faso without her the next day.
Yeah, we are in the middle of the capital city.
Oh, there's the one that...
Little kid. It's bananas. We're going to the supermarket. Some
supermarket is just around the corner, believe it or not. It's a pisserie. They repair travel bags. I could get my backpack
and crack.
My backpack.
Oh, amazing jackets. And a bit of a restaurant.
As we prepared to finalise the sale, the buyers started getting flaky and we started losing patience. We could either wait a few more days in Ouagadougou to find another buyer, or we could take our chances and hope the granny didn't give us grief in Niger, either by breaking down or standing out. The consensus now was to load up on supplies from Ouagadougou's fanciest supermarket, where we could find all sorts of imported goods from Europe, and see if granny would now get us to the coast.
What have you got there?
It tastes like... I don't know.
But
they're not good anymore.
No? Well, they've got 3 more weeks to go. You're supposed to eat them in a moment of relaxation, it says.
I'm totally relaxed. Oh,
Moments of relaxation. What's that, Claire?
We were also on a mission for road trip first aid.
I can't get any drugs.
Fuck. That's all a bit of a shame, isn't it?
It is.
Right.
She was just like, no praziquantel, would you like another drug? And I thought, what kind of prescription drugs could I get for nothing today?
Good thing we could fix our ailments with biscuits instead.
Oh, what's that? Second attempt. What's that? Almonds.
It's not for relaxation.
Or could we?
It's not for relaxation. What?
I think they're better.
Now that we had that out of the way, the only things left to do were to change the tyre and borrow a compressor so that we could pump it up and finally hit the road on to Niger. We'd stop only in Farangoma to put a whole lot of fresh oil in the engine that we'd lose a few days later when I'd puncture the sump while climbing out of a pothole in Niger. And we'll see you there next episode. Hi, present day Claire here. New episodes will be uploaded every Sunday, so hit subscribe if you'd like to be notified when it's time to watch. Thanks and see you next time.